Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Jai Sri Guru Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 6, Text 33. And the chapter is entitled, The Killing of the Demon Putana. Kalevaram Parashubhihi Kalevaram Parashubhihi Chitva Tat Te Brajaukasaha Chitva Tat Te Brajaukasaha Dure Chitva Vayavasho Dure Chitva Vayavasho Nyadahan Kashto Veshtitam Nyadahan Kashta Veshtitam Kalevaram Parashubhish Chitvatate Brajaukashaha Dure Chitva Vayavasho Nyadahan Kashta Veshtitam Kalevaram Parashubhish Chitva Tate Brajaukashaha Dure Chitva Vayavaso Nyadahan Kashta Veshtitam Kalevaram Parashubhish Chitva Tate Brajaukashaha Dure Chitva Vayavasho Nyadahan Kashta Veshtitam. Please chant. Ladies? Kalevaram, the gigantic body of Putana. Padashubhi, with the aid of axes. Chitva, after cutting to pieces. Tat, that, body. Te, all of those. Braja Okasaha, inhabitants of Braj. Dure, far, far away. Chitva, after throwing. Avayavashaha, different parts of the body, piece by piece. Nyadahan, burned to ashes. Kashtaveshtitam, covered by wood. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The inhabitants of Braj cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces with the help of axes. Then they threw the pieces far away, covered them with wood, and burned them to ashes. Prabhupada comments as follows. It is the practice that after a snake has been killed, its body is cut into various pieces for fear that it may come to life again, simply by interacting with air. Has anyone ever heard that before? No, neither have I. The only thing I've heard about snakes and killing them is that when you kill a snake, it takes a picture of who the killer is, and then the spouse comes and sees the picture in the eyes and attacks you. That's the only thing I've heard. So I've never heard this before, so okay. Merely killing a serpent is not sufficient. After it is killed, it must be cut to pieces and burned, and then the danger will be over. Putana resembled a great serpent, and therefore the cowherd men took the same precautions by burning her body to ashes. Om Jnana Timmadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasingaya Namaste Jasya Vira Vira Bhava Vadranaka Vadradangsta Kamashayan Randayo Tamograsa Grasa Om Swaha Abhyam Atmani Bhuista Om Sham. Hare Krishna. So you might have been expecting Harisari. It's not he who lost weight, but is me, Lakshmi Nrisimha. And Harisari was unable to give class today, so he asked me if I would sit in for him. So I feel deeply honored that I have the opportunity to be in the Holy Dham and be able to share with you the light of the Bhagavatam. So, the the verse is Kalevaram parashubish chitva tate brajao kashaha dure chitva vayavasho nyadahan kashta veshtitam. The inhabitants of Braj cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces with the help of axes. Then they threw the pieces far away, covered them with wood, and burned them to ashes. So I thought in my 3 minutes to prepare for class, I thought it would be interesting to discuss about pride, because Putana, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur in both Chaitanya Shikshamrita and Krishna Samhita, he gives a list of the various demons that are there and then what they represent, and how bhakti actually cuts to pieces these various qualities. And so pride is a big topic. A godbrother of mine and I were discussing actually this very topic of pride. Satyaraj Prabhu, who's written many books on Krishna consciousness for a scholarly set and for people who are newcomers to Krishna consciousness. And we were discussing about pride. And Alexander Pope said in his essays, in pride our error lies. So the one thing, I did some research on pride some years ago and did a seminar in New Vrindavan on this very topic. And the one thing I discovered is that, of course, Sanskrit is a very rich contextual language. And in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada, Krishna actually lists items of knowledge there, he says adambam, right? Adambanam. So I never understood in the purport, Prabhupada, when he talks about that pride, he mentions religious pride. So I never quite understood, I never made the connection. But then in my research, I discovered when the word damba is used for pride, it specifically references having pride in your religion, being a proudful religionist. And if you look in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna talks about pride and arrogance and conceit, the qualities of a demon, what is the word that he uses? Dambo, darpo, bimanascha, krodha, parushyam, evacha, agyanam, chabijatasya, parta sampadam, asurim. So these are the qualities, the characteristics of the demoniac: pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. So we can see, and then again in this purport, Prabhupada mentions this. He says, in this verse, the royal road to hell is described. The demoniac want to make a show of religion and advancement in spiritual science, although they do not follow the principles. So here again, both in the 13th chapter of the Gita and again in the 16th chapter, the word, when Krishna refers to pridelessness, he says adamba, and when he refers to pride, he says dambo. So religious pride is what he's talking about. And we see in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the Leela of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dealt with different sects within Vaishnavism, what did he actually deal with? He dealt with the pride, not so much their perspective of Krishna, like the Madhvas and Nimbarka, the various sampradayas. But he dealt with the pride of the individual, and he cut the pride of the individual to pieces. For instance, Keshav Kashmiri. Keshav Kashmiri was from the Nimbarka Sampradaya. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not criticize the perspective of the Nimbarka Sampradaya. What he did is Keshav Kashmiri was proudful of his knowledge. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was cutting to pieces and throwing those pieces far away of Keshav Kashmiri's pride, then Keshav Kashmiri was like bewildered, because he was a worshiper of the goddess Saraswati. And that evening he prayed, what is it? How is this possible? I'm your devotee, and my knowledge was cut to pieces by this young Brahmin boy. He literally tore asunder everything I thought I knew. And Saraswati appeared to him, and she said, because you are offending the source of all knowledge. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna himself, Radha Krishna. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya, which is another interesting point for another class, is the perspective, the divine perspective of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dealt with pride in Keshav Kashmiri, not dealing with the philosophical differences, but dealing with his pride. Again, a famous pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was with Ballabha, right? When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the case of Ballabha, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dealt with his pride. The prideful presentation of the philosophical vantage point that he had. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not accept that at all. The third person that was Venkatabhatta. Venkatabhatta was from the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not deal with the differences of perspective, Lakshmi Narayan versus Radha Krishna. He dealt with Venkatabhatta's pride. Again, so in this case we see that, and there are many other different examples. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was another example. Prakashananda Saraswati was another example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrating his mercy by dismantling their pride. So pride is a very powerful force. Who's the personification of pride? Who knows? Huh? No? Huh? Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu. That is why we pray to Lord Nrsimhadev. That is why we're so fortunate we have this beautiful deity of Lord Nrsimhadev here. Because Hiranyakashipu is personification of pride, as Ravana is the personification of lust, and Hiranyaksha is the personification of greed. And all of these different qualities have personalities who embodied those qualities. So Hiranyakashipu embodied the quality of pride. And we see that in the Leela of Narasimhadev, we see how pridefulness caused Hiranyakashipu to become so offensive to his son, not even to recognize the greatness of his son, the greatness of the Supreme Lord. So we pray that prayer I chanted for you from the Bhagavatam, Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, is actually a prayer I try to recite on a regular basis, whether I'm giving kirtan or giving a Srimad Bhagavatam class, because that element of pride is so deeply ingrained in our hearts that at any moment it could rear its ugly head. So to have, what is yoga after all? Bhakti yoga is a strategy, is it not? We put a strategy into place given to us by the acharyas on how to deal with our obstacles on the path of bhakti. So pride is a big obstacle on our path. In Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Tika on Manas Shiksha, he says there's 6 aspects to pride. And deceit, pretentiousness, deviousness, I can't remember all 6 right offhand, but he gives different aspects of pride and how they manifest. Deceit means we lie to ourselves, because you can't be devious unless you first buy into the lie. And then when you buy into the lie, then you can be devious to others. But if you don't buy into the lie, if you're honest and simple within your heart, then you can't do that. But pride causes us to buy into the lie that is in our mind, and then to promote that lie. So that's why when Prabhupada talks about pride in Bhagavad Gita and uses the word damba Krishna uses the word damba specifically, it's translated as when we become religionist and we think, because after all, what is the definition of pride? In any case, we think more of ourselves than we actually are. Self-promotion is there. We think more, higher of ourselves than we actually are. Whereas the absolute opposite to pride, which is a big obstacle in our advancement to Krishna consciousness, is what? What's the absolute opposite? Humility. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? When he says, when you want to chant incessantly, what does he say? Tirinadapi suni chena tohororapi sahishnana amanida manidena kirtanaya sadahari. So just like you read on a box the ingredients, and usually the first ingredient, there's the most of that, like if you buy some granola, then you'll read oats or something like that. That's the most in that particular. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Trinadapi sunichena, humility, for a devotee, humility is their crest jewel of qualities. And it is the exact opposite of pride. So we have to be very careful of this. I wanted to also discuss a little bit about Putana herself. Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses Putana as an example of pride, and he describes pseudo guru, deceitful, proud guru who preaches sense gratification or liberation or both. In some cases, this may be a person who is engaged in some kind of Krishna conscious activities, but has not realized the course of pure devotional service, and tries to give instructions to disciples beyond their own understanding or without regard for their situations. So Putana, coincidentally, or not so coincidentally, happens to be the representative of pride of a guru or a spiritual mentor, spiritual teacher, who tries to instruct beyond their understanding, and who also is harboring and cultivating pride within their hearts. So I found the other 6 aspects of pride: illusion, ignorance, pretense. So illusion means basically we do not understand things as they are, right? And that causes our ignorance. What is ignorance? Ignorance means to buy into that concept of what we are not. We are not our bodies. How many times has anyone counted in lectures? How many times Prabhupada has spoken about we are not our bodies, we are not our minds? Literally hundreds and hundreds of times Prabhupada drove that point again and again, because it is part of the illusion. And the illusion means ignorance, ignorance of the fact of the true nature of the soul. And pretense, we pretend to be something that we're not, and that is Ishvara. We pretend to be the controller of all that we purvey. And then deceit, as I said, we buy into that pretense. And deviousness, then we promote that pretense. And then we become, pride leads us to a point where we can actually become offensive. And once offensiveness is there, that can be the destruction of our path of devotional service. Jiva Goswami says in the Bhakti Sandarbha, when one becomes offensive, which is the culmination of prideful mentality, then the 6 things, the mind goes through 6 transformations. The first transformation, we become crooked. When we're on the path of Krishna consciousness, we are straight. We are following the path straight. We are honest. We are simple. But due to offenses, due to pride, then what happens is the mind is tainted, the mind becomes contaminated, and then what we have is a crooked-mindedness. We become deceitful, which is in correlation to what Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave in his Tika of the Manashiksha. And then from that crooked, then we develop a lack of faith. The word I use to keep in mind these 6 aspects of the mind that's transformed by offenses is clasp. First, we become crooked. Then we have a lack of faith. Our faith begins to wane. Then our attachments begin to grow. Then slacken. We begin to slacken in terms of our sadhana. And then, what's the last letter of clasp? P, pride. So all these aspects are interrelated. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur is talking about pridefulness and the 6 aspects of pride, then ultimately he ends with offensiveness. So offensiveness is there, and when we are offensive, then we have this whole change of mindset. You know, sometimes people ask me, how is it that a person practices Krishna consciousness and then all of a sudden they fall away? You know, they may be chanting, rising every morning early, chanting all of their rounds and doing everything, you know, according to the letter of the law, so to speak. But it is that pride in our performance, our execution of devotional service, that can be the stumbling block and actually can be the big impediment in terms of our advancement in Krishna consciousness. So we have to not only follow the strategy of bhakti, the principles of bhakti and the chanting and all that, but we cannot do those things in a mechanical way. But they must be heartfelt. They must be under the guidance of both your Shiksha and Diksha gurus. They must be in association with Vaishnavas. We must constantly hear and associate with Vaishnavas. What is the 5 most powerful limbs of bhakti, after all? Who knows the 5 most powerful limbs? There's 64 limbs of bhakti. What are the 5 most powerful? First 2 being of primary importance. Say it again? Yeah. Chanting, I simplify it. Chanting, right? Japa, kirtan. Then, sadhu sangha. Then, study of scriptures, swadhyaya. Then, deity worship and holy dham. Right, holy dham. So these 5 most powerful limbs of bhakti must be executed in conjunction, seriously in conjunction with the first 2, chanting and sadhu sangha. Sadhu sangha is so important. When we associate with an advanced devotee, we naturally are humbled by their humility. Right? So many times in association with Srila Prabhupada, so many times you just become humbled by his humility, right? Prabhupada would say, you know, it is all the mercy of my spiritual master. It is by the efforts of my disciples. He was always ready and eager to give praise and recognition to the endeavors of others, always in that humility. So just by maintaining sadhu sangha, pure sadhu sangha, then we can maintain a course which is straight. Lord Buddha said, if you're facing in the right direction, just keep walking. So the right direction is given to us, the goal of our bhakti yoga system is given to us by Srila Prabhupada and all the predecessor acharyas. And then we just have to be fixed on that goal, executing the 5 limbs of bhakti, and keep walking on that path, that straight and narrow path, without any kind of deviation or fall down. So I'm going to stop here. Anyone have any questions or like any comments? Go ahead. Need a microphone?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the class. It was a very nice class. And I had a question in relation to, you were making a few points regarding religious pride. But I was wondering, we're living in a climate where we need to, establish Krishna supremacy sometimes. And by doing that, we come across individuals who don't believe in Krishna, and they sometimes label us as prideful by claiming that Krishna is higher than other deities. So how do we deal with such a situation? How do we establish Krishna's supremacy at the same time without falling into this kind of situation where we get labeled as prideful? How do we balance?
Yeah, it's most of the preaching that I do over the last 10 years has been in yoga studios, and most of the yoga studios are influenced by Advaita philosophy and personalism. So I usually do kirtans and I give seminars on Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutras. So one of the things they ask me is, why do you always chant Krishna? How about Shiva? How about Ganesh? How about Durga? How about... So there's a couple of ways I could answer that question, but I found the best way to answer it is just to say, I'm sorry, I'm in love with Krishna. And when you're in love, then you can't think of anybody else. Now I could say, I could give them the whole philosophy, the whole philosophical shtick about Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quote Shastra, etc. But what would be the use of that? Then you would fall into that possibility where they would think, oh yeah, okay, you guys, you think that you're the topmost, etc. So I find that trying to be humble, not being judgmental, but yet having the conviction. And by saying, what can I do? I love Krishna. Which is true. I mean, our focus is Radha Krishna. And that is what Prabhupada has, and all the predecessor acharyas, that is directing, to develop within the core of our heart pure love, pure bhakti for Krishna. So I would advise you don't steal my line, but you come up with your line about how you can non-judgmentally address a question like that and present Krishna's supremacy without coming off as being either prideful or judgmental. And I find that line, what can I do? I love Krishna. I can't think of anybody else. So I don't want to cheat on Krishna. Yes? So we
follow the principles of the 5 limbs and chanting in the mood of humility and respect and tolerance. And that itself, intellectually, like we are there, okay, we are supposed to be humble. But that practicing that itself has its own you can say resemblance to pride, and that is an obstacle. So how do we deal with that?
All right, repeat your question.
That means we are doing the 5 limbs, we are intellectually trying to be humble and sort of obedient to the spiritual master's orders, everything we are doing, but that itself, because I am doing it correctly, I have a pride of doing it correctly.
Yeah.
And that's the obstacle. So how do we deal with that?
I think a viable way of dealing with that is giving recognition to your guru. You know, and that's what Prabhupada did. He always gave recognition to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for any of his achievements. So if we don't focus, because what is actually the goal of bhakti is to take us out of, we're not the center of the universe, right? We take ourselves out of the center of the universe and we put Krishna, Guru and Krishna in the center of our universe. So I think one way to deal with that is to give credit really where credit's due, and that is in the influence that our spiritual master has on us as individuals, and to give credit where credit is due, in the Guru Parampara, for actually instilling with us inspiration. Because, you know, what is one of the definitions of Shraddha? Shraddha, you know, in Rupa Goswami says Adao Shraddha, right? One of the definitions besides faith is inspiration. And inspiration, when you look up the etymology of inspiration, it means God inspired or touched by God. So that is what we can say. And we can say, you know, we've been inspired, we've been touched by the Supreme Lord, by the mercy of the spiritual master. And my ability to do whatever I'm doing, whether it's big preaching or simple, humble preaching or being a grihasta and following the principles, etc., we can give credit to where credit is due. And that takes us out of the center of the universe and really focuses the spotlight on where it should be, and that is on those personalities who have influenced us to do so, and also to remain humbly obligated to them, humbly grateful to them, you know, for that influence and for that inspiration. I find this quality of inspiration is so necessary, you know, for us to follow the straight path of bhakti. We have to be constantly doing things, endeavoring in such a way to remain inspired in the practice of our Krishna consciousness. And humility is the way. Another aspect of humility, a manifestation of humility, is gratitude. To be grateful, you know, that for the association of this personality who has inspired me. To be grateful for connection with the Guru Parampara, all of our lineage and all the great saintly personalities of our constantly. If we are to say bhakti is a practice, sadhana, according to Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, sadhana means the constant and repeated practice of our yoga discipline. So in bhakti, the constant and repeated practice over a long period of time of our sadhana, of our discipline. So we remain inspired when we give credit where credit's due. And then the inspiration is there. Yes, is that a hand? Is that Nanda? Well, from what I know of the Leela with Putana, and in all cases, you know, regarding the demons, because Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't only give Putana, he gives a host. Actually, the single most emphasized point that Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses when he talks about these demons is pride. He talks about Keshi demon, he talks about, let's see, who else does he say? First he mentions Keshi demon pride, thinking I'm a great devotee, Aristasura, pride of fraudulent religionist, Pralambasura, profit, adoration, and distinction, Kaliya, etc., etc. So, pride, immediately what comes to mind in the case of Putana is that she can kill Krishna, that she is powerful enough, a personality, deceptive enough, powerful enough, that she could actually kill Krishna. So that aspect of pride, according to Bhaktivinoda in the Zamana Shiksha, which is illusion, the illusion, first of all, what is the illusion? Who is Krishna? The ignorance. I can kill this Krishna. So those are two aspects right there, according to Bhaktivinoda's Tika, of Putana's demonstration of pride. I can kill this child. I've been delegated by Kamsa to kill this child. I can do this. And so she undertakes the task of trying to poison Krishna by giving her poisonous breast. Therefore, she's also considered like a serpent because she was poisonous. That would be one thought I would have on it. Nanda, do you have any other idea that you would like to share with us? Anybody else? This is not my show, it's all of you. Yes, you can. Hare Krishna. Is that Vegavati? I'm getting old, I can't see that far with glasses.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add something.
Sure, please.
I happened to be in Honolulu once when Srila Prabhupada was speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't remember much of the lecture, but there was one thing he said that I was so startled by. He said, he had been talking about pride and how not good it is, and then he said, but to be proud of being the most confidential servitor of Krishna, that is spiritual. And I thought, did he really say that? And then he said it again. So I was also thinking, we're to follow, not to imitate.
Right.
Him, but I just wanted to add that.
Yes, that very good point, thank you. Because I was actually going to mention there is a type of pride that we can be safe with, and that is, proud of our guru. We can be proud of Srila Prabhupada and everything that he's accomplished. I was a brahmachari on the Radha Damodar Sankirtan party, and we met with Srila Prabhupada in Atlanta, I believe it was 1975, 74, 75, and we met with Srila Prabhupada. Of course, if any of you have any recollection of what Radha Damodar was, it was basically, it started, when I joined, it was Vishnu Jan Swami and 8 ragtag brahmacharis. And then later on, a year later, Tamal Krishna Maharaj became part of it, and then he formulated this grand master plan for book distribution. So at that time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was there, and Vishnu Jan Swami were there, and there was at that time, I think it was about 65 brahmacharis and 12 sannyasis that were on the 6 buses that were there. And Prabhupada was talking about brahmachari life, He was pumping us up, so to speak. And everybody, and Prabhupada said, it is best to be brahmachari in order to make advancement. You have your arm as a pillow, the floor as your bed, your chadar as your blanket. And he was going on, and then he said, but you must be honest, brahmachari. So no harm in that. And he further elaborated on the point. And then he mentioned the point about Gajendra. When Gajendra was fighting the crocodile, and Gajendra was being dragged into the water by the crocodile, and Gajendra was becoming weary by the fight. And Prabhupada says in the purport, because Gajendra was out of his element, he became weary by the fight. But the crocodile was in his element, and he became strengthened, he became rejuvenated by the fight. So then Prabhupada used that example. He said, if you're out of your element in Krishna consciousness, then you will become weary, fatigued by the fight. We have our minds, our crazy minds, our desires, our intense desires. We will become weary by the fight. And that's what happens with devotees. Because of pride, they don't want to accept the honest situation that they should be in. And therefore they become weary by fighting the mind. The mind is always there. It was in the Madhurya Kandambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he talks about anishtata bhakti, right? And in anishtata bhakti, one of the things is that we battle the mind. And we become weary by that battle. So the crocodile became strengthened by fighting. He was in his element. Gajendra was not in his element, he became weary. So the whole principle of honesty, which comes by virtue of humility, because if we don't want to accept the level of advancement that we were on, we project that we're more advanced than we actually are, then that battle, we'll lose that battle by not being properly situated in terms of executing Krishna consciousness. So I would underscore that quality of honesty as one of the main attributes of someone who will make advancement in Krishna consciousness. Any other question or comment? Yes, over here. What time does class end? Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I'm Gayadas. I heard also that Putana is a personification of false guru, and guru compares with the mother because of he can give to us a milk for the growing, like milk, energy like a milk. And we can grow, but if you take a false guru, we can be in the illusion that we grow nicely, but it is illusion. Therefore, Putana is the personification of the false guru. It's only one point. I heard that. Okay, we should be very careful about the choice of our guru. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest decisions of our life, is it not? Most important decision. Any other question or comment? Is that a hand raised? Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna. In regard to Putana, once we discussed based on some lecture that she deceives everybody because she was proud of his mystic her mystic potency. So I can deceive everybody. I put such a form that I'll deceive you and Brijabasis. So this pride of deluding everybody. That's one. And another thing I would just say in regard to snakes. I've experienced with snakes. I kill myself few. And when I was small, my father used to kill sometime, or when we were playing, sometime would kill snake. Whatever we do, usually they smash their head, or they put some sharp object through the head. Someone comes to life always. You come after half an hour, she'd crawl and try to escape. It's very interesting. I always thought about snakes. No other animals do, but snakes do. Always happens. So this point there comes to life somehow.
Yeah, I'm a city boy, basically. I grew up in the city, and I moved to North Carolina, and I had an encounter with a copperhead. So I remembered, what do I do? Because it was in my garage. And what do I do? So I remember there's no offense in killing a poisonous snake. I had a child, so I killed it, and then I thought, okay, now he took a picture of me, And his mate's going to come hunting me. Now what do I do? Then I got out a shovel and I dug a big hole and I buried the snake. So remember that. If you look in the eyes of the snake and you see two little pictures of yourself, then you better bury that snake. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention, and Hare Krishna. Well, glorious to Srila Prabhupada.